How do you list previous work from a career that you're transitioning from? Hi everyone, in today's video, I'm going to go over my design resume that got me my first full-time UX design job. If you're new here, I'm Christine and I'm a full-time UX/product designer working in San Francisco. I don't have a traditional design background. I studied chemistry in college, found my way into design and tech in the past few years, and so in today's video, I'll be going over how I framed my past experiences that weren't design related, my freelance projects and my design projects to get my first design job. I'll also be sharing with you some of my old resumes from my marketing job. So if you want to see the evolution of my resumes from being in marketing into design, make sure to watch till the very end. This is my resume from 2016. I had just graduated from General Assembly's UXTI bootcamp. Someone asked me what software I used to come up with this template. I use Figma, or back then I used Sketch, but now I use Figma. If you want to see how I use Figma and get a basic understanding of that tool, make sure to watch this video here. I made a rookie mistake back then, but I wouldn't put a profile image here on your resume because it takes away the focus from the content of the resume. Your resume should be concise and to the point because recruiters and hiring managers are probably looking at your resume for 5 seconds. One of the top questions that I got was, how do you list freelancing, consulting, UX work on a resume? Do you list it first or after corporate work? Because I was transitioning into UX design, I wanted to highlight my design projects. So I put my design projects first before my work experience, but everything is in chronological order, which is really important. Someone asked me that. And here I have contractor next to my title, UX designer. And I put all my freelance, pro bono, design projects from bootcamp as contractor positions. I never got paid to do any of this work, but the recruiters and hiring managers don't really need to know whether you got paid or not, but it's the work that you did, so I put it as contractor. So right out of bootcamp, I made sure to get other projects on the pipeline where I could get real life experience, and so Kernel and Style Savvy were two of those projects. I actually didn't get to do any of them because as I was interviewing and getting these projects ramped up, I got my job during my first interview. Kernel was a startup that a friend of my friend was involved with, and I offered to help with the designs for free. And so the first line here is a summary of what the product is, because most people don't know Kernel and Style Savvy. And then I went into what I actually did for them, or in this case, what I was planning to do but never got to. Prototype high fidelity UI, develop system design, and conduct user research. Style Savvy was a project that my roommate's friend, who was a developer, wanted to do, and I really wanted to get more experience working with a developer. So that never came to fruition, and I got my first job without having any experience working with a developer nor shipping a product. It's much harder now to get a job without that experience. But I do think that one aspect of your skill set could be overlooked because you have all these other boxes checkmarked. Next is graphic designer, sons and daughters, design print materials, t-shirts, banners, and media assets for a local community center that provides social support for members. So Sons and Daughters was a church I was attending at that time, and I didn't want to put church in there because with the political climate and everything that's going on, I feel like churches have a bad reputation overall, and I didn't want to be judged by that one factor, so I framed it as a local community center. So we had this retreat that was coming up, and they needed volunteers to design the pamphlet and the banner and the t-shirt, so I volunteered for that. So Levi's was one of the GA projects that I did. We had a designer come from Levi's and give us a project prompt, so I did work for them and I framed it as a contractor position. We worked for 2 weeks. I know that's like a very short stint, but we developed high fidelity wireframes, clickable prototypes, and we conducted usability testings. And I had this on my portfolio, and it was one of the projects that I had presented during my interview. The other question that I got was, how do you list previous work from a career that you're transitioning from? So we're gonna get into my work experience. I was a content creator back in 2016. I only had 2,000 subscribers. Look at me, I've grown. I wanted to highlight that I had experience in content strategy and I knew the importance of analytics, AdWords, SEO, engagement, etc. The job I had right before I enrolled in bootcamp was at Tatcha. I was not a communications designer, so I ended up swapping this out to my more official title, which was community specialist. But here I did want to drive home the point that I was designing the communications. I spearheaded visual design and content for global email marketing, so I sent out all the email campaigns to influencers. I also designed the story cards tied to product launches. Now let's look at my 2015 resume right when I had quit Tatcha. I mean, visually you can see a stark difference, but also in the content itself, you can see the framing is just completely different. Here I focus a lot on my responsibilities as an influencer and affiliate program manager. So I highlight a lot more of the marketing side of the job rather than the designs that I had done. But in my design resume, I only highlight the things that are relevant to the design role that I'm trying to apply for. So to summarize everything, frame your resume in a way that connects all the dots back to your design skills. Find creative ways to position yourself as already having those design skills and highlight them in your resume. And remember, your resume is always secondary to your portfolio. Even if you have the most amazing resume, if your portfolio isn't there yet, it doesn't have a strong problem statement, you're not showing enough high fidelity mockups, you're not really solving for a real life problem, then it's most likely that you won't get far in the interview process. So if you're short on time and you're prepping for interviews right now, I would suggest that you put 80% of your effort on making your portfolio stronger rather than focusing on the details of your resume. The right column of my resume has all the tools and skills listed out. I'm not sure if this is really important. I just put it here because I've seen every designer put this tools and skills section. I think what's important is that you know how to use Figma and Sketch and some prototyping tools like Principle or maybe Framer. So skills, I just put wireframing, rapid prototyping, user flows, usability testing. But honestly, recruiters and hiring managers just don't really have time to look at this whole list here, because once they see your portfolio, they will get a good sense of what skills and tools you know how to use. If you want to download a copy of my resume, you can do that by clicking on the link down below. You'll also be subscribed to my email list. You'll be the first to know when my resume template launches in a few weeks. I'll also be sharing any tips and advice for anyone who wants to break into design and tech industry. Now let's look at the evolution of my resumes from 2015 until now. So this was a resume I had when I had just quit Tatcha. Now that I'm looking at it, it's really hard to scan everything because there's just so much text. I've looked at a lot of resumes over the past few years because I've been helping my team with interviews and hiring. I prefer concise paragraphs over bullet points now, but that is just my personal preference. So this was my 2016 resume that I just went over. This is my 2017. Oh my gosh, look at the type of gray I was using. Very questionable. One thing that did improve from this to this is the hierarchy of the text. In this resume, it looks like I'm using 6 different font styles because of all the different grays, the boldness and everything, whereas this one, it looks like I'm using a lot less style of fonts. I'll be sharing the resume that got me a job at Facebook in a separate video, so while you wait for that, make sure to watch these 2 videos to get my tips on how to network effectively on LinkedIn and how to ace your app critique.